About a year ago, my life took a startling turn while I resided on the second floor of an apartment complex, a place I had called home my entire life. The apartment building primarily housed families with young children and married couples. Many of these families had lived there as long as mine, and we were well acquainted with each other. However, there was one apartment unit that stood out. It was occupied not by a family, but by a pair of reclusive brothers. One day, everything changed. Out of the blue, a young man, roughly my age, appeared in the complex. He immediately struck me as peculiar. He always wore a sweatshirt with the hood pulled up over his face and would sprint through the apartment complex to reach his apartment. I never got a clear look at his face because it was always hidden beneath that hood. His apartment was on the first floor, and he had an unconventional way of entering. He would often jump through the window. It seemed like he was determined to avoid any interaction with anyone. At first, I didn't pay him much mind, as I had a busy schedule that kept me occupied. However, things began to take a turn for the eerie when he started sitting on the staircase leading to my apartment. This was unusual because his apartment was on the other side of the complex and on the first floor. I initially brushed it off, but soon it became a daily occurrence. Whenever I returned from school, he would be there, even when my boyfriend dropped me off at night, usually around 10:30 to 11 p.m. He would be sitting there, hood drawn low. Sometimes, when I left and came back hours later, he would still be in the same spot, as if he hadn't moved during the entire 5+ hours I was gone. My boyfriend and I decided it was time to share our concerns with my parents, and they took the matter seriously. My boyfriend started walking me to my door every night, and my neighbor stopped sitting on the staircase when he saw him. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. My neighbors started waiting for me at my bus stop. My bus would drop me off right across the street from my home, making it a short walk. But one day, as I disembarked from the bus, I saw him waiting at the stop. He followed me into the complex and sat on the staircase. He even began to follow me when I would walk my dog. At this point, my parents were deeply concerned, and my mom began to inform the neighbors about the situation. They rallied around me, ensuring he didn't bother me, or, if I was alone, striking up a conversation until I safely reached my door. One day, my concerns grew when I received a friend request on Facebook from this guy. I couldn't fathom how he knew my name, let alone found me on Facebook, as he had never uttered a word to me. My mom tried to talk to his father, but every time she knocked on their door, it went unanswered. I couldn't imagine the situation getting any worse, but I was about to be proven wrong. One day, after returning from my boyfriend's house, my mom had something to tell me. She was apprehensive about spooking me, but she felt it was essential to share. While she was heading to the kitchen for a glass of water, she noticed movement in the tree outside our kitchen window. Our kitchen had a large window that took up most of the wall, and just in front of it was a massive tree. If someone climbed that tree, they could peer directly into our apartment. Panicked, she called my dad over, and when the neighbors saw my dad, he jumped off the tree. We immediately filed a police report, but when the police investigated, they found him gone. There were snack wrappers and a blanket hidden among the leaves of the tree, suggesting that he had done this before. It made me wonder how many times he had watched me unknowingly as I went about my daily routine. It's been about 6 months now, and I haven't seen him since. His father still resides in the complex, but there's no sign of him. The authorities' search for him has been futile, but I hope our paths never cross again. When I was 25, my life took an unexpected turn that led me to stay at my aunt's place for a short period. Her apartment complex was a welcoming abode situated on the lower level. My aunt, her 2 children, and I cohabited in this comfortable setting. Her living room was a spacious area with ample windows, providing a constant flow of fresh air. The layout was such that her unit occupied the corner near a lush, grassy courtyard path. At the outset, everything seemed quite ordinary. However, one individual in the complex caught our attention. He immediately gave off an unsettling vibe. My cousins and aunt explained that he resided upstairs, 2 units over. He was recovering from the devastating effects of hard drugs, which had left a permanent mark on his behavior. His parents financially supported his stay at the complex, as they didn't want him living with them. They further revealed that other than his unintelligible mumbling and eccentric behavior, he had never caused any trouble. My initial instincts weren't far off. About a month later, a disconcerting incident unfolded. The mother of the family introduced him as her father, elucidating that he had recently relocated and would be staying with them temporarily before heading north to her sister's house. Although he could barely string a few English words together, he seemed amiable at first. Nonetheless, my husband and I couldn't help but notice that this man's behavior was growing progressively stranger. He often ventured on long walks, seemingly lingering about for no apparent reason. Things took a darker turn when he began insinuating himself into our lives in a way that felt intrusive. One evening, while my in-laws and mother were visiting, they had a disconcerting conversation with this man. He was unrelenting in his efforts to convince them to drive him to the store, offering to use food stamps to buy groceries and requesting cash in return. Our mothers politely declined his requests, but he persisted and lingered, making them feel uncomfortable. Realizing the gravity of the situation, my husband and I decided to share our concerns with my aunt. She wasn't dismissive, but was somewhat uncertain about the next steps. However, she assured us that she would address the issue. In the following days, we observed the man's behavior escalating. He would approach us, particularly me, at inopportune moments and initiate bizarre conversations. It felt as though he were waiting for me to step out of my house. It wasn't just my family. Our neighbor across the street also found his actions off-putting. Things took a sinister turn when I had to leave for work one day, and my husband called me to inform me that he had seen the man peering into our kitchen window through our Ring camera. I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. Our pit bull was barking furiously as he realized something was amiss. The man, upon seeing the dog, quickly retreated. I immediately alerted my husband, and he asked me to review the Ring video. The footage was disconcerting, to say the least. The man had indeed been peering into our kitchen window. When we shared this incident with our neighbor's daughter, she confirmed our concerns and expressed her annoyance at his behavior. She warned us that he had been overly forward and even forceful with women in her family. She was deeply concerned, particularly given my pregnancy. Thankfully, the daughter took matters into her own hands. She arrived at our home and promised that her father would be gone the next day. The assurance was a relief, as we didn't want any further confrontations with the intrusive neighbor. The following day, the man left, and he now resides up north in Maryland with another daughter. The incident still haunts us, and we're left to wonder about what could have happened if we hadn't followed our instincts on that fateful day. Our neighborhood had been our home for nearly 4 years. One house a few doors down and across the street was occupied by a friendly Filipino family. We had grown familiar with each other over the years, exchanging pleasantries, sharing meals, and watching each other's children grow. This family had become a part of our daily lives. However, this summer, an unexpected visitor arrived, bringing with him a strange atmosphere. This visitor was an older man, aged somewhere between 55 to 60 years old. His presence was immediately noticeable as he took long walks and lingered around. The mother of the family introduced him as her father, explaining that he had recently relocated and would be staying with them temporarily before heading north to her sister's house. His command of English was limited, enough to manage basic interactions. Despite his limited language abilities, there was something about the man that gave us an uneasy feeling. His strange vibes were unmistakable, making my husband and me question what lay behind his peculiar behavior. We attributed it initially to cultural differences, but as time passed, his actions began to take a more unsettling turn. About a month later, our mothers visited us, and an incident unfolded that heightened our concerns. This man tried to convince them to drive him to the store, offering to use food stamps to buy groceries and requesting cash in return. Our mothers politely declined his requests, but he persisted and lingered, making them feel uncomfortable. Alarmed by this incident, we felt compelled to share our concerns with my aunt. She took the matter seriously and assured us that she would address it. However, as the days passed, the man's behavior escalated. He would approach us at inopportune times, especially when I was in a rush or focused on specific tasks. It appeared as though he was waiting for a moment to insert himself into our lives. The unsettling nature of his actions was further confirmed when our neighbor across the street shared her own experiences with him. She mentioned how he often approached her family as well and would linger, creating a sense of discomfort. The atmosphere in our otherwise friendly neighborhood had taken a turn for the worse. One day, as I left for work and was about to enter my car, I had a strong gut feeling that something was off. It prompted me to lock my car doors, even though I usually left them unlocked. As I rushed inside my home due to a bout of morning sickness, I also decided to lock the front door, including both the bottom and top locks. My instincts served me well that day, as I soon found myself vomiting in the bathroom. It was a moment of vulnerability, but I was alone in the house. Suddenly, I heard a rattling at the front door. Someone was fiddling with the locks, attempting to gain entry. My Ring camera system sounded an alert, and I quickly checked the live feed. To my shock and horror, I saw the same man attempting to get inside our house. Panic set in as I spoke through the microphone on the camera, demanding to know what he wanted. In response, he said, "Let me in now. I want to tell you something." It was the most coherent English sentence he had uttered since his arrival. I remained composed and asked him what he wanted to tell me. He looked straight into the camera and repeated, "Let me in right now. Let me in your house now." It was at this moment that I realized that something was very wrong, and I was dealing with an increasingly dangerous situation. The man continued to rattle the door, attempting to gain entry. He even began knocking on the bathroom window, creating a sense of dread. I knew I had to act, so I issued a final warning. I told him that if he didn't leave right away, I would call the police. It was a bold move, and I hoped it would work. In response, the man stepped back, his expression shifting from aggression to surprise. He then looked directly into the Ring camera, raised his middle finger, and scurried away from our property. I breathed a sigh of relief, but remained on high alert. He disappeared into the distance, heading back to his own house. I released our vigilant pit bull from our bedroom, where he had been barking and trying to protect us from the intruder. I immediately called my husband and informed him of the disturbing events. He advised me to review the Ring video footage, which only reinforced our concerns. We decided to approach the family with our troubling experience. Their daughter was deeply apologetic and assured us that her father would be gone the next day. She had been aware of his inappropriate and forceful behavior, and she did not want to see us harmed, particularly given my pregnancy. The next day, the man left our neighborhood to live with another daughter in Maryland. Our concerns were somewhat alleviated, but we couldn't help but wonder what might have happened if I hadn't followed my instincts on that fateful day. The memory of this unsettling encounter continues to haunt us, serving as a stark reminder that sometimes even the most seemingly friendly neighbors can harbor disturbing secrets. The line between familiarity and intrusion is often much thinner than we'd like to believe, and we must always trust our instincts to ensure our safety.